It's now time to install inner strakes 27 and 28. So back into my outside shop. The old Proxon table saw I used to cut some bulk wood. Now we're going to whip out some clamps. They're 3 inches wide, and we're going to do it on the gym barns inside the shop. Now we need to establish the height of the clamp, and we need to remember that the line shown on the plan, that dotted line there at the top, that's the top of the beam, which is 5.5 inches thick. So the clamp is actually 5.5 inches below that. I fooled around with all sorts of ways to take these measurements off. The simplest way is to move the base 5.5 inches above the bottom, and then take a piece of paper off of the board. This piece of paper lines up perfectly on the bottom of our measuring board. So I simply take it and mark where I've taken these measurements from, which is the end, the aft gun port, and come all the way down, and then simply put it back on the measuring board, and I can just take the measurements right off the model. So all I need now to do is to reset the height gauge. And that's spot on. And then do the same thing all the way in. We're going to take a little step back because the framing of the upper deck was really covered in chapter 8. We're going to go back to chapter 7 to look at the inner counter timbers. That requires that we go back to the wing transom, and they give us a pattern to establish exactly where the counter timbers fit. And he's saying we need to get this absolutely correct. I'm not going to take you through the actual cutting out of the parts. They're all made up. These are the 4 counter timbers. I still need to clean them up a bit. This here is the quarterdeck transom, which I've cut out, and it's already cleaned up. And I thought at the same time, since we're going to be dealing with the rudder, that we cut the rudder out. In the case of the rudder, David suggests that we might make it up in 2 or 3 parts. I'm not going to. I'm going to simulate the joins. Again, it's a skill that I know I have, and at this point in time, it really doesn't intrigue me to go and really do a very difficult part like this. And since we have it off, I'm just going to line it up. I have placed the markouts on the wing transom. We now have to taper these pieces from 7 inches at the base down to 4 inches at the top. And we're going to do this on a pre-arc. It's just so easy to do. And it's wonderful to have a second saw that really allows us the flexibility of moving from one saw to the other. This is a very shallow cut, and again, very easy to do. Whenever I'm going to taper a piece, I make sure that I mark a center line on both sides, because once the taper starts, you can't actually come back and say, how much did I take on the left or the right? So it really pays dividends to think about these things a little bit in advance. To complete the taper, we use the recess that we've cut on the preac, and we draw a line down to the edge on both sides. And this is simply giving us a visual line to help us while we taper the piece. It's very hard. You have the center line, but you need to see that you need to take off more at the top than here. Now they taper it, it seems, all the way down to the foot of the piece. I find that's going to be very hard to do. So again, what we do is we have a little plane. I got this from Lee Valley a few years ago. Really fantastic little plane. And I'm using this plane to taper down to the mark that we made, and turn it over and do the same thing. And now we go to a piece of sandpaper and take it the rest of the way. We're going to leave it slightly oversized because we want a nice tight fit when we put the pieces together. Now to set the angle on the quarter-deck beam. The inside is 2.5 degrees. We're using these tools to set the angle, and we'll draw it on again just so that it's very visible. Set the angle at 5 degrees, and the same thing on the other side. Thank goodness they gave us these measurements, because I think I would really have struggled to figure out what they were. To set the milling machine to cut the inner and middle counter timber, I estimate that it's 106 degrees, so that's what I want to set it up. Well, sometimes we get it right. That's the tight fit. We can open the slots up or sand the timbers to get a nice, clean, tight join and fit. And I can see I have some adjustments to make. But before I make any adjustments, I'm going to check the alignment to make sure that the basics are correct. I've done a measurement. Here's the center line at the bottom. Here's the center line at the top. So it's spot on. And just for argument, I will do the same on this side, although it should make no difference. Again, spot on. So they're exactly the same. So I'm not sure why I'm having this problem here. Using the spacers, we've got them to line up, looks like perfectly. So there's no issue with the stern. And I'll probably have to make this piece over again because I don't like the fit. I guess I got the angle wrong on the mill, so I'm going to increase it by another 10 degrees. Now we got it perfectly, the angle is correct. So once we put it on the boat, let's hope we get the same nice tight fit. Well, that's much better. So now we can just shape the transom, and this piece will be complete. I've been through this already, so I'm not going to go through it again. We just simply go to the additional steps we're now taking. Now we've marked the trim piece that we're going to cut out, and then we're going to add in a support piece. The 2.5-inch floorboards fit right into the recess. So we've marked the 2.5-inch rebate. We've cut this to shape. So now we're going to bend it, and then we'll stick it, and it'll be a slight overlap, and we'll clean it up on the bottom afterwards. And you can see it's got the bend, and it'll hold nicely on the piece. Okay, well, I'm happy with the fit, so now we'll stick the transom. Once that's stick, we'll come back and stick the other pieces. We're going to put them in one at a time, and we've had to, as the book suggests, modify the foot or base of each piece. So we're going to do that so you get a nice proper join. We've made up the helm port in 3 pieces, and we've shaped it, rough shaped it. Now we're going to install it with some PVA glue and do the final shape on the model. taken the model off the base, made a little stand to hold her, and really what we need to do now is to flatten this, and I got this off the spiral sander. It's actually a perfect way of flattening this little curve on the end, on the two end pieces. Not quite accurate. I may have to fill in these two pieces, but right now I'm just interested in smoothing out this part of the stern. David reminds us in the book to make sure that we taper the edge of the plank so we get it flush against the next one. These would have been rabbited into one another, sort of reed and bead. So again, just means that we need to take this down a bit.